go ahead.
So I'm Scott FuzzyJoseph. I'm a independent comic publisher for myself. I draw. I like to draw pictures. I teach 8th grade ELA language arts, and I'm chasing the dream of drawing for a living.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
aren't we all? Isn't that what it is?
Right. But also trying to find that balance of making my art work with my life. Does that make sense? Because art for me as a child was always something that was very personal, and it gave me a chance to actually talk with other people.
Were you like very introverted?
Kinda.
Oh.
My brother was always very outgoing. He was like the athlete, star athlete for everything.
Right.
And so even though he was younger than me, I was still kind of in his shadow for that. And
That's
art,
exactly my brother. He's a superstar athlete.
And so art was my way of dealing with that, and it also helped me focus. So like in the classroom, I'm sure you might have been the same way. I sketched always in the classroom, and that actually helped me focus. And through teaching and knowing that that's how I worked, I let my students work that way too, because everybody's different.
So you're not one of those teachers who are like, get your like, you know, if you catch them drawing while they're trying to lecture, they'd be like, stop that, pay attention. You wouldn't do that to them.
No,
if you saw them.
well, it depends. I'll check.
Okay.
I'll do questions to make sure that they are actually paying attention. And that's where like testing and stuff pops in too, because then you can actually gauge it. So if a student, if they're doodling, it happened in my honors class that I taught last year. There were a couple students that they would be sketching, and so I would ask questions, say, what do you think about this? And then if they were able to give me a response, I'd be like, all right,
you're fine.
let's keep going. Let's keep going. But
there's a difference between being focused and zoned out.
Right. Yeah. Daydreaming's. Yeah. Daydreaming. No bueno. But if you're focused, it's for me, drawing was a way to focus, to pay attention, and to really just be involved at the same time.
So I had a few years ago I watched this talk by Sir Ken Robinson. I don't know if you've seen it, but he talks a lot about how school teaches creativity out of people, how we're all instinctively creative and then it's taught out of us instead of the other way around. Do you agree with that?
I think especially now, unfortunately, because a lot of arts are being phased out of the public school system.
Yeah, it seems like it was like that even when we were in school, and then is it even worse now? Because I'm not involved in that.
I would say so, unfortunately. Which is why I run like an art club at my school. So on Thursdays I'll have students, and it's open to all students of all grades at the school. Everybody comes in and we discuss art. A big thing right now what we're doing is focusing on how you put yourself into art, because it is a very personal thing. It's almost a romantic thing. While it's you creating something with your hands. It's you being able to put your emotions and anger, which is an emotion.
Oh yeah.
And love on paper, especially if it's about like a character that you're passionate about, or a show. Anime is huge right now for like in the middle school demographic.
Yeah.
And so like my students will draw a lot of anime style thing, which isn't necessarily my style, but I can help guide them with it. So one thing with when I'm helping the youth, like my 8th graders, 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds, and then younger down to 6th grade, is the fundamentals. Because a lot of people, they're just rushing and this is my style.
Right.
And it's very important with my degrees in fine art, and it's important that you know the rules before you break them.
Exactly. I believe it was, and I'm just quoting a bunch of people because I listen to a lot of stuff. It was Stanley Lau who said that you have to know the root of all style before you can make your own, and the root of all style is no style, which is real life.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, because you need to start from somewhere.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
I didn't
say it. No, but that's cool. You
didn't.
brought it to me though. Yeah, kids, and that has to do a lot with society now. People just want everything really quick. They don't want to put the study into it.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I know when I start, because everyone starts with, or at least most people start with anime, because that's their early exposure, and then it's kind of hard when if you spend some years drawing anime heavy style, big eyes and long, super long limbs, to try and move that back into realism is actually kind of hard, like to go from one end to the other.
Super hard. For me it was the 90s and late 80s comic books. So like when Jim Lee's X-Men came out, amazing. He won't talk about them because he's with
of course, yeah.
Yeah. But and then Rob Liefeld, who I adore. People like to complain about proportions, but that was it. That was the styles. And like you said, with big eyes, small mouth, right? Isn't that the anime thing?
Yeah, with Rob Liefeld, I mean,
Just
it was exaggerated, but
yes.
it was still technically the muscles were correct. They were just stretched out really weird.
And it was at the time that's what was huge, and I loved it. I still love it. And so when I would draw, I would get those proportions, and I would elongate limbs and make heads kind of a little bit smaller than the shoulder. Everything's just massive and out of control. But that made it dynamic, and that comes into dynamic drawing, which is a whole nother thing.
What do you like to focus on? Like, what do you like to emphasize that you said putting themselves into their work. So would you say somebody, like, is it mainly they're drawing things that they are actually fans of?
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. But mainly that they're themselves. Because unfortunately a lot of people get lost in trying to do what's popular. And I mean that's cool. If you want to make a quick buck drawing Deadpool, or a quick buck drawing Harley Quinn, that's doable.
Come to the artist alley.
Yeah, that's all you'll see a lot of it. But
we can walk around right now and see that. Yeah.
But what's important is that you're true to yourself, and if you like a certain character, draw that character. Be the best person that draws that character. And if you've come to a place where you feel like you have a style, master that style. Keep pushing yourself, because if you're not pushing yourself with your art and trying to better yourself every day with it, you're gonna get stagnant, and then you'll lose heart with it. Talk to other artists, big time. I worked in a tattoo shop for a while, and it was the biggest push in my art that I've ever had, because it was competitive.
It forced you.
It forced me. My mentor B, I was drawing skulls nonstop for weeks, and roses, like, because that's the bread and butter of tattooing is skulls and roses, and then working on different styles of those. So you go from realism to, it's stages, it's practice, it's making yourself better, it's muscle memory. Muscle memory is huge. So if you're that like 8-year-old who's tracing things, cool, do that, because it gets you used to it.
Yeah, a lot of because when I live stream, the chat is always asking questions, and something that gets asked almost every time is tracing okay? And the response that other people in the chat give is no, but then I have to speak up and say, actually that's fine, because when you trace somebody else's work, you get an idea of why they did whatever it is they did. Absolutely,
absolutely. So if you're practicing, do that. That's what I did growing up. X-Men, I was drawing Wolverine constantly, and that tracing got me used to it, so that when I would work on my own, I'd be able to mimic certain things. Yeah, it's a tool. It's just like when people use Photoshop, that's a tool. I know a lot of people will say, I only draw, pencil and paper because that's real art. It's like, no, we're so fortunate that our technology is advancing, that our art gets to advance that way too.
It's almost like evolution. Like, if you're not willing to accept it, you're gonna get left behind. Like, you don't have to practice digital art yourself, but to deny that it's a thing is so what's not progressive,
Degressive, is that a word? I'm an English teacher, I should know.
Congressive.
It stunts your growth, artistically. I fought it for a while.
Yeah.
I really fought using digital art for a long time. And I even got into arguments about it. And now I'm looking back at those, and those were terrible. But now I use a lot of digital, use Photoshop and Sketchbook Pro a lot to clean up my artwork for when I'm doing my own books. And it's a great way to get those super clean lines.
Yeah.
And I know that if people who did graphic design back in the 1920s, Mad Men, that was in the 20s, it was 40, anyway, if they could have used Photoshop, they would have been on that.
Yeah.
Like a rat on a Cheeto. Yeah.
Yeah, so in regards to putting yourself in your work, would you say that maybe one of the reasons when your work maybe isn't well received, we as artists take it a little bit more harshly than somebody else, because what we make is like a direct, it just comes out of us onto the paper. Yeah. It's not like some product we had manufactured in China, brought here, and nobody was buying it. It came out.
Something with your hands. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You're always going to get disheartened. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's relationships, though. It takes a lot to to talk to somebody, to pour your heart into somebody. And I think art is that same sort of thing. So you have to be willing.
Never thought of it that way. That is a really good way to look at it.
Right? And so as long as you're trying and doing it, no one can fault you for that. And know that your art's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. But that's what's amazing, is because that there's so much out there. There's so many different people out there creating art. And it gets competitive. It really does.
Yeah. Especially since it's so oversaturated now. You could get lost in Instagram and Facebook and just looking at other artists' work, and it's just, you're like, well, should I be like that? And I don't mean to interrupt you, but have your, I don't know if you...
Silicon Valley Comic Con, this is Nightshade.
We're at Silicon Valley Comic Con right now, by the way.
Sounds like you had a good sleep.
Do any of your...
Before you went to sleep.
I will cut it out.
Awesome.
Do any of...
It is 10 minutes to 9. They will be, so everybody have a great day today. Again, we'll be opening in about 40 minutes. Have a great day, and welcome to Silicon Valley Comic Con 2.0.
So, among your students, have any of them expressed the interest to go, like, have their future somewhere planted in art?
Yeah. I have a few
yeah, so,
students.
like, what do you say, something like that? What do you tell them?
Start practicing now. Start doing it now. Get yourself a social media. Get your name out there. Get your art out there.
And it's never too early.
Never too early
to put your work out there. A lot of people think, well, I'll wait till I get better. But then it's like, when is that? When are you gonna wait? Like, what point?
Yeah. I would also advise, if you're younger, let your parents be involved in your social media screening stuff, because there's some weirdos out there. As
that's
a parent
good point. I
and
never
as a
thought
teacher,
about that.
Especially if you're creating like your online persona or your online artist stuff, let your parents be involved. Seriously, it will protect your butt. Yeah, that's as a parent and as a teacher, it's important that you stay safe. Yeah, and then what's cool is that it could give you something to bond over. Even if your parents aren't necessarily into it, I was very fortunate. My parents were always pushing me with art, which is amazing. Art lessons from elementary age, and actually encouraging me to pursue it in college, which was amazing.
Awesome.
And it's rare. It's rare.
Is that what you did?
I did
in college.
I did. Yeah. And I probably had a little too much fun doing it. 10 years to do an art degree. Yeah.
But you got it.
But I got it. I got that piece of paper.
There's no date on it. Doesn't matter.
That's right. That's right. But yeah, get your family involved if you can. I think that's important. Yeah, and it's a bonding thing too. One of the coolest things I see at these conventions is when people are taking their kids through, and you can tell that the dad or the mom has no interest, but the kid is alive. So if you're a parent listening to this or watching this, just try. There
is actually a lot of extra value coming to like a comic book or anime convention than just seeing cool stuff. I mean, if you, at least I feel like, if you bring a younger person and they're just exposed to all this different stuff, whether it's the art, the cosplay, the music, just culture. I guess it's just a new culture in general.
It's different cultures.
It is very beneficial.
And
you hear it all the time.
It's also a bubble, which is nice, because it doesn't matter what's going on out. I say this a lot. If you've come to my table ever, I probably have said this. It's a bubble, and it doesn't matter what's going on outside, and outside the venue, outside the city, outside the state, the country, whatever. In here, we're all like a family, and that's what's cool. It's very cool, and people who stir trouble are out, like quick. Instantly.
Every convention is quick to get rid of people who are bad.
Which is nice. Which is very nice. Yeah. Let's see. What else? Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, because I spent pretty much my entire life up to my mid-20s not drawing and not doing art. And there's a big part of me that really regrets it. So, even though I'm not going to dwell on that, but if you had any words of advice for people who are going to start maybe a little later in life, what would you say?
Do it. Just do it. Because there's always going to be an excuse. There's always going to be an excuse.
I'm going to wait till I'm ready.
Yeah, oh no, I had kids, so I can't. No, forget that. Draw pictures for your kids. They love it, man. Draw pictures for your nieces, nephews, whatever. Draw pictures for yourself. Just draw wherever and whenever you can. Whether it's on a napkin or a Post-it note or on a piece of paper, on a canvas, or whatever you can do it. There's always going to be an excuse. So just jump in, just do it.
So, any last things you want to say to people who are watching? Because a lot of the people who watch are actually aspiring artists. Even though I don't like saying aspiring, it's like you're either drawing or you're not. So, like, you're either an artist or you're not.
Or you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about it, that helps. I am trying to get my students to, and you're amazing at it, perspective, vanishing points, things like that. Always be aware. Always look. The world's an amazing place, and find the art in everything. That sounds so cheesy.
No,
but find the art
so you're
in everything.
saying when you're walking around, don't just look. Actually, see what's going on.
Yeah, look what's going on. And shapes. Basic shapes are everywhere. Squares and circles.
It always comes down to the most basic stuff, isn't
Absolutely.
it? That's what improves your work the most.
Absolutely. So break it down. If you're having a hard time, break it down. Try to simplify it. And then build up from there. It's like Legos. Just starts with one piece. Oh, that one. Oh!
And with that, we're going to end it. I'm going to put all of FuzzyJoseph's stuff in the description down below. Go check out all his work. We're at Silicon Valley Comic Con. Thanks everybody for watching. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You guys, awesome. All right, guys. See ya.